to our final workshop talk today. I'm so excited because I get to introduce Zeffi Devi, and I don't really even have all the descriptive words to capture her amazing journey, but she has been on a journey and really been a devotee of the goddess, of Hinduism, of Tibetan studies, and she has really walked this path in the most organic and authentic way. And she has been championing this lovely woman's cause and been just a mentor to me and so many others in her brilliance and in her beauty. And so I am really excited, Zeffi, for you to tell everybody your story about how you kind of came to this work and really found this path.
Thank you, Kathy. I really appreciate it. And I really love to share my story. And my story started when I was 27 years old on the path of being initiated in actually New York from a guru that no one knows about it. No, it's not a famous name that, you know, some gurus that we know. And I always had this incredible luck to say, maybe you can say luck. I always found gurus that no one knew. So they were kind of pure in a sense, and with not too many devotees around them, just, you know, very low key gurus and kind of hidden from the path. And that's what I like, because I think we find a lot of the authenticity there in that kind of, how you say, circle, correct? Because they're not, you know, it's not that you cannot reach them. Sometimes gurus just sit on a pedestal and you cannot touch them. My gurus, I was very close to them. I traveled with them in India, and I slept in the, you know, in the steps of the Ganges and in different temples, because that's what my guru did. And he was a follower of the goddess Durga. And Shakti's been in my life for the past, I don't know, 35, 40 years now, since I was 27. That's kind of tell you my age. Maybe I told more. It makes me look older, but I'm not. But my path started actually when I was 9, and I was very intuitive, but that got lost through going, you know, through getting married and coming to America. And then when something happened to my life, when I was 27, I moved to New York, and that's when I met my guru, and he initiated me to the Durga, to the goddess Durga, as a lot of you know. And it was just an amazing path, because, you know, I went to India at the time with $300, and I spent there 3 months with that kind of money. And I only had my ticket to go and my ticket to come back to America. And I wasn't working or anything. So I spent 3 months kind of following and practicing in temples and being part of incredible, incredible pujas and ceremonies. So that's how my path started.
Oh, that is an amazing journey, actually. And I love that part of it is like listening to your intuition and totally surrendering to the will of your spirit and your spiritual path, and the bravery that took, but also like it seemed like that was just a given. It was a fact that was going to happen.
Well, what happened was a friend of mine said to me, you want to be my guru? And I said, yeah, of course. I was intuitive.
And I know today that, and I know as part of this, there's the whole goddess path that you've walked, and I'd love to hear more about that. And also like what we're going to talk about today, which is healing that sacred feminine. And why have you been so dedicated to this? Because this has really been a big part of what your life has been about, is really honoring that, igniting it and healing it.
Well, I'm very interested in the history of the goddess. I you know, since I was a little girl, I always loved mythology, and I loved, you know, Egyptians and the ancient Greeks and the Hindu and the African. I was so immersed when I was young in the African tradition. And when I watched women in books, about studying about Africa, I was like, wow, that's an original. I felt that I lived with them, and I felt like I was there. So everything that I done in this 30 years in the path, it's all because something spoke inside of me. Something was waking up when I saw an African woman, or I saw a Hindu woman, or I saw, ancient Greek goddesses. I just something was waking up. Maybe it was past lives, maybe it was memories that I remembered that life that I had, because I believe I lived many, many lifetimes within this lifetime also. But the path has been my, I was in love with the path. And, 20 years ago, I discovered Mary Magdalene, which was an amazing thing to find out, the marriage between her and Yeshua, and her devotion, and how initiated she was into the path. And then, of course, kind of blended with the Hindu tradition about what I know about the goddess, and not how they get initiated in India, and then the ancient Greek path. It just all kind of blended for me. The Egyptian, Isis, they all kind of blended. And that's what we're going to talk about today, actually, part of how to heal that wounded sacred feminine, like how to heal actually the goddesses within us, not just the human body, because we've been doing that for a very long time, correct? We've been healing our human self for a long time. Now it's time to heal the goddess within us. I don't know if that makes sense, because
It makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Keep going.
because we also believe that the goddesses of the myths that we have discovered, that that people say that the goddesses are also being hurt. Like, for example, Isis, she got wounded because her husband was cut in pieces by Osiris, by his brother Seth, so he was hurt. Mother Gaia, in ancient Greek tradition, she was also hurt by her husband Uranus, and even Rhea, the Titaness, that she was and in the ancient, she was the wife of Kronos. She had to hide her baby, Zeus, in the cave. So it's like so many stories that we say that even the goddesses had to suffer through going through all that. But in ancient Egypt, India, which the major goddess is Adishakti, and Adishakti, it doesn't ever look wounded. It's very interesting. The female impersonation of her in the earth gets wounded by her father, by the marriage, by the situation, correct? But when she comes into that full aspect of her, she's not wounded at all. She's actually very powerful. And this is what we need to heal within the human body, so we can reach that goddess, so we can become one with her, so we can actually be initiated by her in that way, because she's not wounded. It just, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like this dichotomy, but we have so many wounds, and we believe in the archetype. And let me just take Hera, the jealous wife of Zeus, that she had to punish all the women around her, because Zeus slept with them. But that's also a goddess that is wounded. But that's what the myths say. But the question is, and I want the ladies that are watching this, is actually a goddess, can a goddess be wounded? I think we need to ask that and discover that inside of ourselves, how we allow our wounds to take place also.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating. And, like at the core, who are these goddesses? What is their pure and most potent essence? And then these stories that gets told by them, and sort of, even if you look through the patriarchal lens, right, the jealous wife, right, that he somehow has this dominion over her, or the Cronus, and that we see that kind of seeping in. But when we go back further and we go to sort of the very essence of these goddesses and we explore them, we see the opposite, right? We see these very whole, healed, powerful entities that have a very different journey and a different experience. Can you talk a little bit more about like how these perceptions of this wounded goddess and then maybe the reality of these goddesses? Because that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, I want to give a little bit of a Hindu story. Of course, we had other experts on Hinduism on our channel, but the little bit that I know is, I would say, a very simple story of Shiva and Shakti. And actually, his first wife was Sati, okay? And her father did not want Shiva as her husband. But Shiva knew that she had the essence, and she was actually Adi Shakti on earth, like that powerful goddess, the Adi Shakti. But she did not want to really, how do you say, take that full power on, because she was caught between the father and the husband. So what she did is, one day, as they were sitting in Mount Kailash, the father invited Sati to go into this big ceremony that we're doing, but he did not invite Shiva. So she was so sad and torn, like really torn. She goes into the ceremony, and Shiva is sitting in meditation in Mount Kailash, and she throws herself in the fire and she burns herself because she was so tormented that she could not reach Adi Shakti. She could not reach that aspect that she was, this highest aspect of she was, because she was tormented on this earth about the relationship between the father and the husband. So you see what happens in the earth? We get tormented with our emotions because we forget our higher aspect of ourselves, which is we are goddesses. We are that powerful Adi Shakti. We are the powerful Gaia. We are the powerful Rhea. We don't have to hide our sun, so the god doesn't need it. Like Isis, she, in the end, she realized that she was so powerful that she ended up putting her husband together. She did not, he was cut in pieces all over Egypt, thrown all over Egypt. And the other thing she created is she took a stick, and because the lingam, what energizes, for her to get pregnant, it was missing. She could not find it anywhere. So she actually took a stick and put it on the lingam space, and then what happens is she created Horus. So you see what I'm saying? That no matter how tormented the goddesses can be, they still find the strength to become that. So to continue the story of Shiva, his second wife was born again. She was again, Adi Shakti, and she went through really all this, how do you say, the second life, the second reincarnation of her. And there's one day that I remember of the stories that I was told, that Shiva was sitting there with a bunch of the tantrics of the men, and she walks around with the Shiva lingam, a beautiful, which is the yoni, the female yoni, and the lingam. And she's like, and Shiva asked her, she has no idea that that's Shiva. And she says, Shiva asked her, "Where are you going?" And she goes, "I'm going to do a ceremony." But she had all the proper things for the ceremony, like what actually you're supposed to do, which she learned from her father and her family. And then Shiva takes a piece of meat and puts it on the lingam and says, "You can offer whatever you want, and that is okay. Things don't have to be proper. Things don't have to be perfect." And then what she decides to do, she reaps all the, her clothes and everything that she wears. She wears just a red sari, goes into the cave for 40 days, meditates. Then she becomes Adi Shakti. Then she realized her power. You see what I mean? So there's so many little stories. I might not say them all correctly, but this is what I observed from my studies and my following my gurus and the teachings all this time of, all these years. So it's like there is our strength inside of us. We just need not to connect with what's going on, the trauma outside of ourselves. Because if we take the trauma inside, then it becomes ours. And
Yeah.
yes, we've been traumatized thousands of years as women. You know, we've been burned, we've been prosecuted, we've been raped,
Sure.
everything has happened. But now the new energy is coming. The new world is appearing, and the new world is, I found out that this month, actually, on the full moon, that it's really the day of the goddess rising, of the feminine rising.
Wow,
On
that's
the full moon.
amazing.
And it's part of the stars aligning that way, that the feminine, the goddess, is arising as we're doing this, correct?
I love
Like
that.
auspicious. But this is the goddess. The goddess is not she's not her wound anymore. The female should not be her wound anymore. She should just really accept the wounds and say, okay, I've been through them, I got them, we have all the practices, let's just keep practicing, because the wound's never going to go away. The only thing they're going to do is they're never going to be healed, in a sense. But what can happen is, if we're aware of them, we can catch them right away. And that way we don't recreate them.
So we kind of,
go ahead.
we don't give them the same level of power that we would. Yeah, that was sort of my question, is like, okay, so I'm understanding that we've got these sort of sacred feminine wounds. What is that step to making that shift, to really beginning that process of sort of perceiving things differently, is kind of what I'm hearing you say, and I love that story of Shakti, like, it's like abandoning what was, abandoning the right way, and sort of listening to ourselves and our intuition, and kind of going on that path. So yeah, that's my big question. It's like, so I hear you, I know exactly what you're saying. What do I do? How do I begin that journey for myself?
Well, first of all, we have to honor our wounds. We all have them. And we all have to, the way to heal them is to honor them, to actually look at them, and even maybe write them down, because we've been doing processing work for a lot of years. A lot of women really are looking at their wounds over and over again. So what is actually causing you to have wounds is, it's actually, I don't want to say it has to do with us, but we recreating them, correct? By our mind thinking, oh my God, my father used to do this. And then we kind of send that to our husband. Like we kind of mirror the father aspect into our husband or into our boyfriend, instead of saying, I need to choose not my wounds anymore in my life. I need to marry not my wounds. I need to live my life not with my wounds. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of that kind of process. It's like, look at the wounds and say, thank you. You taught me a lot. You brought me here. It's time for me just to heal you all the way to the core. And the way to heal you is to love you, and really you become one with me. My wound is
really true.
Because if we don't become one with our wounds, we can never heal them. What I mean is, honor them, look at them, and love them for what they are. Love them.
Yeah. And it's incredible how powerful that is. Like, because a lot of times we're ashamed of our wounds, or we're trying to overcome our wounds, or we're controlled by our wounds. Like you said, we get triggered, we, behave a certain way. It's like, it's all very subconscious sometimes. But to really love, have that compassion, and own, and live inside of, without trying to sort of manage those wounds, it can be a very powerful shift, I think.
Yeah, and also shame is the right word that you said, and thank you for bringing that word up, because we're very ashamed of everything that has happened to us. Correct? We're ashamed of our bodies. We're ashamed of our wounds. We're ashamed of our parents. We're ashamed where we live. Why? We don't need to be ashamed anymore. We're beautiful the way we are. We're here for some kind of reason. And I think a lot of women that hear, not a lot of women, all the women in the world, they're here right now, this moment, that is this incredible moment that the whole world is living. because the greatest shift is happening right here at this moment. And if the planets are lining up on the full moon, can you imagine that? Can you imagine? And the goddess is rising. It's like we didn't even know that me and you are going to do this on this date. It just came to you and to us. You know, we just like, let's just do it. And everything is lining up because we follow an intuition. We follow what do you call it? A calling, correct? And that is because we're not ashamed. We're not ashamed of ourselves. We're just going to do it. We love it. And that's the way to be. And that's how the goddess enters your body. Like, for example, Mary Magdalene, she's got wounds, but other people put on her. Other people called her the whore. Other people called her the prostitute. Other people gave her all those things on her, correct? That wasn't her. She didn't have that wound. That's why she walked the way she walked and continued her work afterwards.
Right. And that's something I think is very important a lot of time about these wounds is like, you know, we're ingesting these other ideas of things about who we are or who women are, and then we take them on. Like a woman is supposed to be skinny and perfect or whatever, right? And then we ingest that, and then that becomes something true for us. Or if somebody criticizes us, we ingest that and then we make that true about ourselves. But like you said, those weren't Mary Magdalene's wounds, right? Those were wounds that were being put on her. And I think we do that too, right? Somebody's putting wounds on us, or they judge us, or they say, oh, that wasn't good, or whatever message that we might be getting from the world. Then we start to take that on and say, oh, that must be true about us or whatever. And then we start to own something that never belonged to us in the first place.
Exactly. That's the key. Like we need to like start separating what is us and what isn't ours, correct? What other people say about us and what we say about ourselves. Now, if we start believing and allowing this energy of others to actually, you know, come inside of us and create this negative space, of course, we're going to start believing that. But if we say, okay, this is your opinion, has nothing to do with me, my opinion is very different, then we get our strength. Then we don't become the jealous, you know, wife, and then we become the hurt wife or the girlfriend, or, you know, jealous of our friends or whatever, you know, they were fat or skinny or whatever. It doesn't matter anymore because we're loving every single being of ourselves, you know, every single cell of our being. Sorry, I was dyslexic there. But, and the goddess, that form of the goddess that we love so much, say is Mary Magdalene or Isis or any goddess that we can, but Aphrodite, you know, anyone, it can actually enter us because there's no guilt and shame. So once that form enter us, or really we become that, we one with the goddess. We are the goddess, you see. But how does the goddess come in through shame and guilt? There's just no way.
Well, and there's so much, like, kind of going back to where I was talking about, like this repression of that feminine energy. And then that feminine energy is that love, is that compassion, is that nurturing energy, right? And yet it's been banished. And it was probably frightening because, like you're saying, when you are operating with that energy, you don't have that guilt and shame. You have your power. You are very powerful when you are operating from that place. And so there's been this concerted effort to wound these goddess figures, right? To wound that female archetype, to wound a women's perception of themselves. And so as we uncover that, as we sort of let it dissolve, because sometimes the fear of the wound will keep the wound intact. Whereas if you just surrender to it, you kind of walk through it and see that it doesn't even exist, that it's not even true, you know?
How many of us were, you know, growing up and people were, you know, women were ashamed, young girls actually were ashamed of having their period, never told the parents. You know, but in Hinduism, there is a goddess that actually bleeds in front of everybody. No, seriously, the legs are wide open and it's kumkum on it, but she bleeds, and it's very auspicious. It's where I was trained in the past 5 years, 6 years. It's one of my initiations. The woman, it bleeds, and it's not a shame, you know? So this is what I mean. It's like, when can we stop this shame? How far can we actually stop saying no?
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a story, and I'll tell you this, is, as we know, that Christianity started after the Romans, correct? The Romans kind of said, baptize Yeshua, Christ. But what happened was that, because before that, it was all the goddess was worship. But 400 years later, after Christ was dead, then Mother Mary, they introduced his mother in the books, because the people were asking for the feminine. They were asking for the mother.
Yeah.
400 years later, she was introduced in Christianity.
That's fascinating.
And that's in the books, correct? In the Bible. Can you, I mean, I went to Mount Sinai, and a few years ago, maybe like 15 years ago, and I was talking to one of the monks, and they said, you know, Mother Mary was introduced 400 years later. Think about that. And
Well,
again,
and
what happens to Mother Mary? Her son dies and goes away. But then they say to her, so another wounded female, correct? But then this, but Jesus says to her, no, John should be your son now. So you see, there's no wound there if you can replace things.
interesting.
So it's a lot of the stories, as I gone around, I found out, you know.
Well, and also, you know, there was this whole goddess culture that was this pagan, earthbound culture that they wanted to spread this monotheistic, male-dominated religion to. So they tried to have these figures like Mary and Mary Magdalene or whatever for people and these rituals and rites that were really part of this other culture, to try and blend those things together to, you know, so it's like, you know, the same thing, but with a different face that they kept doing. And I think that that's part of it too. And it's like kind of reclaiming those parts of the things that, again, we've been taught that there's a whole nother truth that we need to uncover and claim.
And this is what's happening now, you know. So as the god is rising on the full moon, which will be, you know, an incredible time, and slowly she's waking up in all of us. It's because she's waking us up to let go of our wounds, to let go of our wounded feminine, the sacred feminine, correct? Because the Adi Shakti, she doesn't have any wounds. She's not wounded. The female body, inside the female body is the wounds. But now it's coming. It's our time. You know, it's a time to rise. And I'm very, you know, when I found out a couple of days ago that we were doing this on these auspicious times, I was like, wow, this is amazing that we're going to be talking about the goddesses when actually the goddess is rising.
Absolutely.
You know, so this is what I want to share with everybody, that for us to rise is for us to really love every single part of us. I've been through so much in my life to be here today, but all those being experiences, I'm not going to call them traumas. I'm going to call them experiences that brought me here where I am today. Because, you know, like I said, I lived many lifetimes within this lifetime, like different lives, you know. And today was very interesting. I was somewhere in this temple in Greece, and I stopped and called someone for something, and the person who was right behind me, was an ad, and I wanted to look at something, and the person who was right behind me comes in. He's from America. He used to live in DC when I used to live there. He knows exactly my life at that time, because I used to own a club when I was in DC, and he knew my life at that time. And he's like, no, you're not Zeffi. And I'm like, yes, I am. So, so I mean, even up to today, my past came in front of me, but it was in a happy way, correct? Because I owned the club, I was in the fashion industry, all that stuff. And he knew my ex-boyfriend, he knew, the club, he told me where the club went to, my club, it was just this amazing experiences that we all gone through. Yes, there was pain there when I was breaking up and all that, but then I'm here today to even share that and to find out this morning that this person from DC is here. So the reason that I'm saying that is our lives is full of experience, not full of traumas. So we can shift trauma to experience. And then, what's going to happen then? We're going to be uplifted, and we are going to become the goddess that is not wounded, that is not hurt anymore. I know it takes work, and I know it takes a lot bravery. Actually, to me, the word is bravery, for us to really be so true to ourselves and about ourselves.
I think that's great. I really do. And I think it's a really important message at this time, because when we really sort of start to make that shift from trauma to experience, and we sort of own all of the events in our lives from a loving place, we really become all that we can be. Our Adi Shakti, as you would say, gets ignited, and we start sort of interacting in our world in a totally different way. It's very, very powerful.
And things open up. I mean, it was my day today, if I tell you, from that, my past experience, from meeting this person to the end, it was just all flowed so easily. It was no trauma, no stress. I was in the town that I didn't know. I met this person, then end up going, he guided me to this beautiful temple that I wanted to go, because there's no way I could have find it, because he's local there. You know what I mean? Just things just happen, one thing after another, because of I had let go of that traumatic experience when I was 27. And I'm here today with just experience and loving that part of my life, I mean, it's amazing that I even had to talk about it today. I didn't think about that I was going to talk about it, but this is it. Like, let's just rise to the level slowly and daily that we forgive ourselves, we love ourselves, we let go of guilt, we let go of negative kind of thought forms about ourselves. Forget about the others. First, to start with ourselves. And then just say, you know what? Yes, I had this experience, this trauma, but I'm changing it to experience. And it's not even a lesson. I don't want to even use the word lesson anymore. I don't want to use the word trauma anymore. I want to use the word experience.
I think it's very powerful, very powerful.
And that shifts us. That really shifts everything. Because then we get uplifted, and then we rise, and then we're surrendered to the goddess. We really, truly, like, what's her name? She did, Adi Shakti did, the second wife of Shiva. She just surrendered.
Mm-hmm.
She surrendered to herself. That's why she took all the clothes and all the jewelry and everything, and she went and sat in the cave for 40 days. That's all she did. She just surrendered to her.
I think surrender is so powerful. It really is. It's like really learning how to stop resisting life. And like a lot of times when we resist things, that's when all of the sort of difficulty, negativity, all that energy gets allowed in some ways. But when we surrender, that's when we actually kind of have that power to respond effectively,
And also we create miracles.
Yeah, we do.
Create miracles. And this is where we're going. We're going to get back to our intuitive self, to create miracles, to be the healers that we were, the how do you say, the herb collect, we used to collect herbs to help and heal, and everything that we used to do as women. It's time. It's finally time to get that, to really live that. Because I think we lived in trauma too long. We don't deserve it anymore.
No, and I think that this is such a beautiful message to end this week on, because it really is exactly about that, rising up from the ashes or whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
really being the phoenix that we're meant to be and really like reclaiming ourselves in really powerful ways and not being walking wounded anymore, but really being empowered vessels,
Yeah.
and that is our journey. And I feel like that message of surrender and love and compassion and shifting our perspective from trauma to experience, like those things um, are really, just even giving that sense of permission to look at life that way or to step into that is so empowering.
Exactly. And what I really want to do is I really want to take women through a Shakti dance that will be my offering to the women that want to sign up with me. Well, not with me, but on the web, on my website, I guess. I want to give a 2.5 hour workshop on actually dance our Shakti and really go from trauma to experience. That is something
Mm.
that I want to give to the women. And all of you can sign up and experience it. We're going to do it through Zoom and we're going to have fun with it. We're just going to wear dresses, and I tell you more details after, you sign up. I'll send you the details on that. But this is the key. This is the key of being a woman is let go, is trust yourself, is really surrender and surrender
Mm.
to your inner goddess. And the most important thing you can do is pick a goddess that you love, really, that you connect with her. Bring her in front of you, like sit and meditate with her for 5 minutes and just call upon her to be with you at all times. And once you do that, you'll see that she's there with you, and then she's actually opening up the road for you to let go, to go from trauma to experience.
Mm. I love that. Well, this was a fantastic talk, Zeffi, and I felt like it really gave such a beautiful perspective on how to really make that shift and heal that sacred feminine in all of us and then exponentially outside. So I cannot thank you enough for sharing your beautiful wisdom with us today.
Thank
That
you,
was just
Kathy.
wonderful. Appreciate it very much.